All right, folks, we are going to head into the bottom of the division last year, and that is your Carolina Panthers. It's a hell of a nice stadium there. We watched a game or two in that stadium.
We did go
back in our pit days.
That's right.
You remember watching
them
Clemson
absolutely slaughtered.
Yep, Clemson beat the living tar out of Pittsburgh Panthers there. I forget what year the ACC championship that was, when it was Lawrence was still there, right?
Lawrence was still there, and Kenny P was lighting it up for Pittsburgh. So
yeah, good days.
Right.
All right, so we're going to start off as always. We're going to talk about the losses and the additions. We got a lot for the Carolina Panthers. Most notably, Brian Burns is now a New York Football Giant. Very, very excited about that as a Giants fan, as I mentioned. You also have DJ Chark, who never really worked out, going to the Chargers. Laviska Shenault to the Seahawks. Hayden Hurst to the Chargers. Frankie Louvu went to the Commandos there. Jeremy Chin, safety, went to the Commandos as well. And cornerback Shaquille Griffin went to Minnesota. For the additions, they got Jonathan Brooks, running back out of Texas. He was their, I believe, second-round draft pick. You have Deontay Johnson coming from the Lurs there. You had Xavier Legette, their first-round draft pick, wide receiver from South Carolina. And then you had Jadeveon Clowney, still kicking in the league. He's been added. 2 offensive guards in Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. And then Josie Jewell taking over the middle linebacker spot to take over for Frankie Louvu, and Dane Jackson to take over for Dante Jackson, who went to the Steelers. So a lot of moving parts there. What are your big takeaways?
Good thing that they made some moves, because they needed it. Overall, kind of like you said, Brian Burns is going to be missed, and you're perfectly fine with that. Him going up to the New York Football Giants.
Do not hate that one bit. Do not hate it one bit.
Yeah. I mean, Jeremy Chin, Shaq Griffin, a couple notable losses as well. I think the big thing for them was their offense sucked. They were so bad.
They were so bad.
Basically every level. I mean, you bring in a rookie quarterback in Bryce Young and don't give him anybody to throw to. His offensive line's one of, if not the worst in the league.
Yep.
And I think they tried to do him a favor here and go out and get a couple new pieces in terms of wide receivers, a couple big guards to help protect him. We talked about a little bit earlier how the Bucs former OC, what's his name?
Dave Canales.
Dave Canales. Is he the is he the coach? Oh, never mind. That Deontay Johnson got that all figured out for us.
I was gonna say, man, you're about on the same page as their new star wide receiver.
Figured out. Okay.
But
anyways,
joining a new company, going out to dinner, and not knowing your boss, like your CEO, right? The guy who brought you here. That's fucking insane, man. That's crazy.
That's wild. Absolutely insane. But I mean, as a resident Steelers fan, Deontay Johnson, I can see it.
Is everybody crazy? Dude.
I've never been the biggest DJ fan. I'm not gonna lie. Not to say that I like him walking out the door. What's that?
He's got to have mind control abilities. All these dudes are crazy when they leave. Le'Veon Bell, AB, now Johnson, and he even admitted, telling the story. Yeah, I didn't know who my head coach was.
I know. I know. I mean, Tomlin has them locked down when they're in the Steel City, but once they leave, you find out a lot. Yeah. But no, I think they did get better on offense. Bringing in Jonathan Brooks, that I know you're not high on, but it's another horse in that stable of running backs that Canales is going to use. We know with him in Tampa, he's going to pound the rock. They weren't super efficient when they ran the ball, but they're going to go to the well over and over again. Deontay Johnson and Legette should be better options than the
DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault.
Basically
still there,
basically anybody outside of Thielen who knows anybody else on their offense. So
I think
they're gonna be better. How much better is the question.
It's almost hard to be worse. So yeah,
exactly.
definitely get that. No, you mentioned it. So yeah, the real big injury. So we'll talk about some minor ones really quick. Shaq Thompson, obviously a huge player for them, linebacker there, outside linebacker. He had a fibula fracture. The bone essentially broke, right? So typically about 3 to 4 months. A lot of times with the bones, it's just about letting that bone heal. Sometimes you need surgery depending on what type of fracture it is, if it's stable or not. But really, it's 3 to 4 months. He's got 11 and a half months to recover. It just sucks because it happened in the beginning of the season, and it just took the whole season. And there was no point of trying to rush him back with that pitiful season they had there in Carolina. So he should be absolutely good to go. And then you mentioned the rookie Xavier Legette from Carolina, South Carolina there. Hamstring strain, it seems minor, happened in OTAs, something to monitor. Hamstrings are a bitch. They are definitely one of the most burdensome injuries in the NFL. They suck to rehab because you feel better. Like you feel like, oh, I feel like I'm good, right? And they have a high re-injury rate. So before that muscle is actually fully healed, you're going to feel better. So these athletes are going to try to push themselves, and there's where a lot of re-injuries. So as long as he can avoid that, and he's got a lot of time still in the offseason, not too worried there. But Jonathan Brooks is the big one. And we'll talk about him a little bit. ACL tear, which we just talked about. Again, major stabilizing ligament in your knee. He got injured on November 11th. So he's got just about 10 months until the NFL season. So why don't you give your take on Brooks, and then I'll go after.
Yeah. So I think as far as the timeline goes, it's not awful, but it's not in his favor by any means. Like you said, I think that 10-month mark is the earliest that we would ever send somebody back. But with that being said, they have a stable of running backs. They got Miles Sanders. They got Chuba Hubbard. They have they just brought in Rashad Penny, who has dealt with injuries in his own sense.
If he could ever stay on the damn field, man.
Exactly. But they have other backs, to get him through that first 4-6 weeks. If they were to delay his timeline a bit, which probably would be beneficial. But I think it's also one of those, you got a new toy, you want to play with it kind of a thing. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly they get him on the field.
Yeah. So yeah, you kind of alluded to it. I've got a little bit of strong feelings about Jonathan Brooks, and kind of here's how it breaks down for me. I will say this: Jonathan Brooks, out of the rookie running back class, clearly, when healthy, the best running back. He did some awesome things at Texas,
no doubt,
but he only really played 1 year, right? Sitting behind Bijan and Roschon Johnson. So, in his first real season as being the guy, he had a major injury. Then he's a rookie in the NFL. Speed changes. Now you're saying he's going to get little to no time as far as OTAs, training camp. Like, he's not going to be ready.
No.
And even at the 10-month mark, running backs have a difficult time trusting their knee again and getting back to it. So I expect a really slow start. I expect him to not even maybe be ready for week 1. I think it's in his best interest to not get rushed forward and be thrown out there week 1. Here's how I see it, though. Right now he's going at RB 25, right around pick number 90 overall for the fantasy football season. I think that he's going to, it's whether injury or whether just trying to catch up to the league, he's going to struggle early on. So the way I would play in fantasy is I would not be drafting Jonathan Brooks because he's going too high for me right now. But if you think Jonathan Brooks, like I kind of do, I think he's going to be the best best running back in this draft class, just not this season. So if you're playing from a dynasty standpoint or even from a redraft standpoint, I would look to let him disappoint the initial owner and then try to trade for Jonathan Brooks potentially later in the year or again in that dynasty aspect, right? So right now for me, he's kind of a fade the first half of the season, but I'm pretty interested to see what he looks like in the second half of the season. He's going around guys like Zach Moss and Dak Prescott. Although I hate the Cowboys, I would rather for this season take definitely Zach Moss. I'm a big Zach Moss fan. And Dak Prescott, I think, will probably put up more points than Brooks as well. So I just think he's going too high for me right now. And that's kind of how I would play that. All right.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. As far as, waiting, I wouldn't probably draft him. But if he ends up on the waiver week 6, week 8, then I may be interested.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One quick note I'll add is that one of the biggest concerns for me with this team, Like Derek mentioned, a lot of moving pieces. So, which when you're that bad, it's probably a good thing, right? You got to hopefully at least get a little better. With the loss of Hayden Hurst, they didn't really bring anybody in. Tommy Tremble is slated to be their tight end number 1 right now. So that's a little bit concerning. He was a fun guy to play in the anytime touchdown market sometimes because he had 50% of his catches were going for touchdowns last year, but he didn't have a lot, right? So that's a little bit concerning. But I will actually I'll kick it to you. What is your best bet for the Carolina Panthers?
So I got a couple thoughts here. So the one that I'm all over is Clowney's sack total, which is only at 6.5.
Okay.
They really don't have many other pass rushers.
Not really. DJ Wonham, probably the biggest one.
Exactly. I mean, you lose Brian Burns.
Yep.
He had 9.5 with a defensive or a loaded defense in Baltimore last year. So I think Clowney's number is just a little bit low for me.
He had 9.5 sacks last year.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Yep.
No
so
way.
6.5, I think is a pretty good number for him to get over. The one that I'm kind of interested in is Bryce Young, comeback player of the year.
Oh, what is he coming back from? Sucking?
Exactly.
What? He's listed in that market? Are you serious?
Yes, at plus 4,000.
That award makes no fucking
plus 4,000 comeback player of the year. Just
40-1 comeback player of the year, Bryce Young.
They bring in a ton of new offensive weapons for him. They get him some help up front. They get him a new OC, head coach, whatever you want to call Canales. I'm just saying. Hey, I'm thinking about it.
It's 40-1, so I'm not gonna tear it apart. Listen, I think Bryce Young can be a good quarterback. I did like him coming out of the draft.
Yeah.
You're right. He was in probably the worst situation ever in Carolina last year. So I'm not ready to just throw him away like everybody else is, but okay.
Canales came in and fixed Baker in Tampa Bay.
Okay.
You bring in Deontay Johnson. You bring in a stud rookie wide receiver in Leggett. You have a boatload of running backs already. Like everybody's throwing him to the wolves right now. So he's coming back to the slaughterhouse as it is.
40-1. Okay. So I mean, Baker was close to getting that award. I think he was like 200-1 or something like that. So okay. I don't hate it. You got all right, I can build the narrative. You have the number 1 draft pick. Was a terrible situation, not really his fault. Now he gets some help. Like you said, QB whisper, OC comes in. Exactly. Okay. All right. Let's see. I don't know if I'm ready to pull trig yet, but 40-1, can't really knock it. All right. We mentioned it a little bit. I've got one play here. My best bet for the Carolina Panthers for the 2024 NFL season is Jonathan Brooks under 5.5 rushing touchdowns. Question for you, Derek. How many rushing touchdowns do you think the Carolina Panthers had as a team for the 2023 season?
5.
Not that low, but they had 7. 7 rush touchdowns. And that's not one player. That is every player on that team. They had 7 rush touchdowns, right? So even if they're not as bad as they once were last season, like we talked about, they still have Miles Sanders. They still have Chuba Hubbard. He's coming off an ACL tear. I just think that this is a very hard number to reach. Now, I did not take his, that's at minus 135. So is his under on yards. I think it's his yards is like 725.5. I went touchdowns instead of yards because, like I said, I do think that he is going to be the best running back in this draft class. So if he has some pretty massive games, he starts to get back into it. They kind of play him early and then he actually goes off. I think that he definitely could get there on the yards.
Garbage yards. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I just think touchdowns is going to be hard. I don't know how many touchdowns they're going to be scoring. And again, the leader, I think it was Chuba Hubbard had 5. And then there was 2 other players that had 1. 7 touchdowns for the team. I just don't see it. So give me the under 5.5 rushing touchdowns there.